Hi, this is Bruce Carlson, president of Carlson Software. I'm being joined by Nathan Cruz, who's the project leader for Precision 3D Topo and our entire Precision 3D platform. This is a new platform for Carlson, and we're developing a series of products on it. P3D Topo, I'm going to launch right now. So let me just cancel out of or minimize PowerPoint. And there's the icon for it, P3D Topo 2016. It's been out since January 15th, and we're going to have new builds every month. So let's go ahead and load a surface. I have one that I've put together. We load CARLSON TIN files as well as land XML files as surfaces. And one of the very useful purposes or applications of P3D Topo is to clean up the topo surfaces that you make in CAD, and it helps you find and search for areas where you have problems. In this example, notice right away that things stand out. You see asphaltic road surfaces, you see high walls or steep slopes with their own special texture. What's going on here is that Carlson Civil outputs a TIN file that has multiple colors in it as part of the TIN file format, and these colors can be mapped to textures, so things pop when you bring them into this editor. In addition, when we save a land XML, we save in the new land XML2 format, and we save these textures out. So we can read in the textures through Carlson TINs, we can read in the textures through land XML files. And as more and more companies in our CAD marketplace adopt land XML2, they too will be adding textures to the surfaces. Now let me talk about a few things here. These bright lines help you see the borders between one surface and another. And if I maximize here and click on textures, you can see I can turn these lines off and on. It's a little cleaner with those lines off, but they're helpful to have them on. So let's go and look where we have a problem. If I zoom in here, you barely can see that I have a DTM problem unless you get even closer. And then you start to see that this surface outputted by Carlson RoadNet in the transition from one section to another created just a little, perhaps 1 foot high wall that you wouldn't want to build in the field. You'd create a little puddle of water. By the way, you can right click on this surface and you can show water runoff and track it. So you can see right there where my white cursor is that the water runs and then just stops right up against that wall that was left over from a DTM surface created in Carlson 2016. We want to get rid of that. Now, the next thing we're going to do, let me point out, by the way, how high is that? Look to the right. When I'm in the ditch zone, the elevation to the right is 798.159. When I get up on top here, it's 800.453. So it's about a foot, foot and a half of abrupt vertical rise that I want to eliminate. I'm going to alter my interface because I'm going to be making use of this reporting zone on the right. The zone on the left is sort of your work and design zone. So what I'm going to do is set a snap. I'm going to do this endpoint snap you see here and turn that on. You can have multiple snaps. You can hit another snap. That would be snap number 2 active. We'll just go with this one snap. Now what I'm going to do is go to this polyline command and pick, using this snap, these endpoints where surfaces meet each other. I'm going along the bottom, and then I'm going to go along until I find another snap on this side here. Then I'm going to come up, over, and C to close. It feels like CAD. It feels like the AutoCAD or IntelliCAD or Carlson environment in general. Now I've got this perimeter that allows me to right-click and just blend this out. I'm going to triangulate across and get rid of that bump. I'm going to right-click and say Blend Surface. And just like that, the surface blends out, and I can come in and see that it looks really clean going down and the water would run just fine. What I'm going to do now is actually hit the delete key because I don't need that yellow line anymore in my overall system. So when I hit delete, I have a nice clean surface, and I can even do things like alter my textures in here. I can click on this surface and drag down to this area here and hit it again and click and drag this down here also to that same area. And just like that, I've even made the surface look better, and I can continue that process. By the way, I've altered the surface there and I've altered the textures. I could right away at this point go ahead and save this as a land XML. I can hit the Save Land XML icon and put this into FBI demo, and I can say US 68 texture 1 and save this as a land XML file that you could share with somebody else using this product, or share it with somebody else using perhaps another CAD altogether. See, it tells you up top, Save Land XML command running. So give it a chance to finish that. There's a lot being saved, including all the textures and all the zones. And then I hit OK when that is done. So that's one example of saving. A thing you can do to see the precise slopes that you have in this final saved surface is you can load over here a centerline file. I can come over here and load US 68. It's a centerline file from CARLSON. You can also bring in a centerline file as an XML file. So I can hit open that file, and it has zoomed extents on that center line, and the area that we were focused on was right in here. And then with the centerline file as a reference, it's right there, it's that white line, I can come in and do a slope inspector, and I can select that line, and you can see now, if you look to the right, that when my cursor is in the middle of the pavement, look to the right, and the cross slope is -2%. You even see the forward grade slope of -6.17%, and then the max slope is using both of those downhill slopes, and it's -6.48%. So all of that is important information. Let me move over to the shoulder and watch how it changes. The cross slope, this is coming out of RoadNet, so it's very gratifying that the slopes are that accurate to the third decimal place on this surface. It's -4% in the shoulder. And then as I get into the cross slope of the fill there, notice it's precisely -50% or 2 to 1. Now if I came back and got into this rock-like upslope here in cut, you can see it's 100% or 1 to 1. And if I get into the slope above it, it's 65%. That was obviously by design. Maybe that was 1.5 to 1. So that's a nice little inspector. You can hit escape. So you can use the inspector to help you fix up the slopes. Now I have another problem here. And by the way, in addition to saving a land XML file to give to somebody else with that improved slope area there that you fixed up, benefiting from all this texturing and wonderful 3D viewing where you control your sun position down here and can learn a lot from these border polylines. You can also right away click on the surface and let's see, click on the tin actually, and when you right click, watch this, you can save export the surface as edited and look at the file types here. When you pull this down, a CARLSON tin, a TopCon TN3 for machine control, and a Trimble TTM. So this is really a nice tool for those who have the goal of outputting to machine control. But many engineers would want to use this just to fine-tune their DTMs to be sure they're in perfect shape to hand over to construction. in general, because a lot of roads are surveyed still. Thank goodness for the survey profession. Now what I want to do is use a different tool. I could do a blend to get rid of this little problem, but let's first of all analyze the problem. You can see here that this little wedge came down, tied into the existing ground where my cursor is pointing right now, but created little vertical walls on both sides. RoadNet did a very good job on this file, by the way. These are 2 of only 3 or 4 areas that need to be polished up. Now we could do blend again, but let's attempt to do another form of editing here. If we come in and click on the surface, get sort of the surface having focus, you can right click and hit Edit Surface. When you hit Edit Surface, you get all these options down at the lower left and the ability to see all the tin brake lines involved here. Now I want to get right on top here. So I want to get the tin position that's causing me trouble. So I click where those blue cyan lines that are following that elevated area are. Then I come down here, I hope I got the right one, and I remove selected surface point. And there I did. See how it went away? So now I can hit right click and get out, and I took away that edge there that was bothering us. Now the only remaining thing to do might be to change that texture if you so chose, and that can be done a number of different ways. If I pick on it, I can grip this and drag it up to the upper surface, and there's still one remaining here. Or you can right click and see, let's just right click in it and select texture, and I can come over here and even do our direct texture control. And if I know the texture for that other surface, I can just drag and drop it in. So I look for it and just sort of drag and drop, and that's another way to do it. Let's just escape out. And if you want to make it look more attractive, go back to Property Explorer, turn off all the Show Polylines, and you have a nice surface ready to save and hand off and give to somebody else. Those are 2 of the editing commands. We're going to show you some more. Let me show you something else that's interesting. If you have a surface like this, you might have a surface that's completely undifferentiated on textures. That's very likely in the early days here of Precision 3D Topo and Land XML2, because right now only CARLSON software is outputting tins with colors that can be mapped over here under surface. Colors can be mapped to textures, as you see. I'll cancel out. So the rest of the market has to catch up. So you're going to see pretty undifferentiated surfaces. You'll see the wonderful shadowing, but you may have to retexture everything. And one technique to do that is our auto texture command. This is obviously a retaining wall that we've designed or measured as built. And what I want to do now is come in here and do a command, getting on top of this, called, let me get there, and it's called Auto Texture. So by selecting Auto Texture, it finds common slopes. This has a steady downhill slope here. So with one pick, I can then right-click or hit A to accept, to apply, and I'm going to apply an asphaltic texture over here. So when I hit A, I've applied an asphaltic texture to the top of that. It recognizes that's one common slope. Nathan will be taken over here in a second and showing some other applications of this. Then I can escape from that command altogether and click on that polyline. Here I can come in and very carefully grip and pull this down to a new position, and grip and pull this one down to a new position. And there you see I've actually helped make that whole retaining wall concrete and look a lot better. And I can spin around, zoom in, and do the same on the back side to complete the process. I can pull this one down to here, and finally pull this one down to here. And there, look at it from this side where the sun is shining, and the whole thing is now concrete. Before I hand it off to Nathan, because this 30 minutes goes really fast and we're at 12:15 already on my computer, I want to show that not only does P3D Topo serve as a wonderful, clear, crystal clear editing environment to improve your surfaces, to make sure they're buildable by construction equipment and surveyable by surveyors to be something real and useful. You can even field to finish here. Field to finish is a survey concept, but if I come over here, let's actually start to minimize a lot of what we've done. I can use this field to finish icon. You've seen me use a few of these. I can come into field to finish, and what we have here is that codes like maple are mapped to trees, and a pole like a light pole is mapped to a light pole. And then we have ground shots, skid marks, white and yellow lines, etc. So this can be designed by you utilizing our 3D entities and our built-in 3D polyline logic, and then simply hit OK here. And look at that. I have field to finished on top of this existing design. Now it's pretty close, but not perfect, and that's why some of the textures go in and out. And it actually made a new surface over top the existing. Look what it did. It sort of spanned across there because you had no measurements at the base of the slope. You had a measurement here and a measurement here, and it triangulated across. So really my original surface is preferred here. Look how even some of the trees are bigger based on the coding of the trees. This was a 70 height. This was a 50 and 40 height. So that tree is bigger than the others, the one on the far right. The next thing I'm going to do is locate the tin file for this, right-click, and delete it. By to the tin, I'm back to the original surface. Now, if some of the polylines are not sufficiently draped, this yellow line should be continuous. So what I can do is come in here. Let's just illustrate the yellow line at first. Click it, and then you can drape to surface. So I'm going to make it 3D first, then come back and drape to surface, and there, that yellow line is nicely draped on the surface. It's actually coexistent with the center line of the road on the middle there. I could turn off that center line polyline, which is right here. I don't need to. And in a similar way, I could, using my control key, hit the white line, hold the control down, go to edge of pavement, and then come down here and make them 3D, then come back and drape to surface. And bingo, I have a good-looking final result. I'm not quite done yet before I hand over to Nathan. On this particular polyline, I can draw and add to it. So I'm going to come over. This is not closed. It's a perimeter, say, of a building or a pad or whatever we want it to be. I'll come in here and draw using my snaps from that endpoint over to that endpoint, then hit Enter. And that made a 3D polyline. Now I can right-click and do a pad template. And you can see right away it found the highest point, and by default, it uses the highest point and pad templates it. Now, as I roll my mouse to the right, I can raise the pad elevation or go to my left and directly enter it. You can do mixtures of cut and fill. Here's the cut, and here's the fill on that side. So a very powerful command to do a little pad template treatment. And at this point, I can hit Enter. And then if I right-click that, I can merge that in with my surface and then save it as a new land XML or save it as tin, export it, do lots of things. But there is that superimposed pad on the site. I've taken it already to 1219. And Nathan, I'm going to hand it over to you at this point. Lee, it's up to you to switch presenters. We're switching presenters right now. If I'm still visible.
Okay.
Here we go.
All right, can you see my screen now?
Yes.
So I'm going to do a little bit more on surface editing. So this is an actual existing project that one of our guys is working on in Maysville. I think it's called Walled Park. which is an athletic park, and this is sort of as-built survey information. And then the surface was built using that. But I noticed in reviewing it for auto texturing and so forth that there were a few errors in the surface. And so I'm going to show you real quickly by right-clicking on the surface. I'm going to fix this by selecting this point and hitting the R key to remove it. Hit this point, hit R to remove that, and I'm going to press the Enter key. And you can see it's nicely fixed up. And I know that there's another little problem over here that's fairly obvious. So in this one, I'm going to do a replace command, snapping to face nodes in the tin. So I'm going to snap to that node, and then I'm just going to come outside the surface, and I'm going to close that. While it's in 3D mode, difference between blend and replace is replace will not drape the polyline to the surface, and it will add it. So you get this vertical cutting sort of behavior, like that. So now I just sliced off that bad part, and certainly I can come back in now. I can re-edit the surface, and I can establish whether or not there's additional points that I want to keep. And there's probably some extra stuff in here that I really don't want. So I'm just going to go ahead and quickly clean that up. But I just did one too many, so I'm going to hit Control Z. So Control Z. So our undo support is active both during commands and after commands. So I can Control Z and undo all those adds. You can see those points coming back. I can also redo those during the command. Once I hit Enter and I accept the command, if I hit a single Control Z here, it's going to undo. Let me pull this back so you can see. It's going to undo the entire command. But I can also hit Control Y to redo that. So there we're nice and back. So I'm going to show one other cleanup area, because these are really common things that all designers and surveyors have to deal with. I've got another little notch problem here, and I'm just going to quickly do exactly the same thing. And the nice thing about this node snap is you don't actually have to see the wireframe of the surface underneath of it. So I'm just going to come out here. I'm going to rotate a little bit. I don't really have a clean node here, but what I'm going to do is come out to a pretty good spot there. Actually, I'm going to Control Z that extra click. So while you're drawing a polyline, you can hit Control Z to undo a particular snap. And we're drawing in 3D mode, which is why the line appears to disappear underneath the surface, but it's there. And again, what I'm going to do here is trim that off. And I may not have picked up the right points here. That's being a little ornery. So again, Control Z. I'm actually going to snap this guy all the way to this node. I'm going to pull this out. I'm going to add a vertex here by right-clicking on the polyline. And what I want to do is find another even node, and I'm going to do a replace surface on that. There we go. Now that looks a whole lot better. So again, these node snaps allow, so if I go into edit surface at this point, what you see on the screen are dynamic graphics, and we're automatically snapping to the center point. We also limit the area of influence. So if you don't want to have such a large area of influence, you can shorten that down. So I'm down to 10 feet. You can also change the amount of scroll wheel, the amount that it goes up and down for each scroll wheel. So for example, I can pick on a point, hold the right mouse button down, and then with my scroll wheel I can scroll up or down and change the elevation of that point. I can also, and obviously I don't want that, so I'm going to undo, and you can actually see it undoing every single mouse wheel until we're back to where we started. We can also show contours and change the contour increment if we want to. That adds a lot more detail, and that's a lot more useful when you're working on road intersection problems, for example. We can also show slope arrows. So this is just giving you an idea of the direction for all the center of the faces. So for every tin face, we're going to draw the arrow and show you the direction of flow, basically, for your water. So now that I've got that cleaned up, I'm going to show you auto texture really quick and a way that you can control auto texture. So I'm going to draw another polyline just for construction. Since auto texture really follows these flat surfaces the same way, I want to make this asphaltic, but if we look at the surface, this is another continuous, it has the same continuous slope. So if I didn't put some control in here, I would get asphalt all the way out to here, and I know that this really should be rock chip area. So what I'm going to do is quickly drape a 3D poly. Only draped polylines can be textured. And I'm just going to pick a quick concrete texture here just to texturize this area. And then this is basically as construction. So I'm going to turn off my other snap. Now I'm going to do the auto texture command. Go to my property explorer where it's showing me that I've got my pavement selected, the color of the polyline that's going to generate, and also the texture resolution. I'm just going to pick that point there and hit asphalt. I'm going to end the command at that point. Had I not put this construction line in there, the asphalt would have gone all the way out to here, but that's not really what I want. So now I'm going to get rid of that guy, and I'm going to do the auto texture command again. This time, I'm actually going to pick up the wood chips, and I know 65 is a better, and I'm going to change this to a different color. And I'm just going to pick one point here and let the program determine that path for me. And it did a perfect job. Now, while I'm still in the command, so I just hit A after I picked the point, I can also texture multiple areas at the same time. So what I'm going to do is quickly change this to grass. Take this back, I think, to 10. I'm going to leave the same green pavement. I'm going to hit a point here and a point here and hit apply. And now we've just auto textured these two zones. Now even during the command, if I hit Control Z, it will undo those auto textures in the same order that I did them. And there you go. So really quickly, I've shown you how to clean up a surface that was almost perfect but not quite, but now it is absolutely perfect, and also able to go in and really dress that back up. I'm going to reapply that. Go back up to my texture polys. And turn them off. And there you go. I want to show one other, with only 2 minutes left. I'm just going to start a new scenario here really quick and load a different file, an international file from Holland. Lots of flat stuff going on over there. So really quickly, what I'm going to do is texturize this. So this is typically what you're going to find of a LandXML 1.0 file coming from any other company until more adoption is there for LandXML 2, which supports all of these textures and colors embedded within the LandXML file. So you don't actually have to ship the images that are textured as well. They're actually all packaged in the LandXML file using standard XML techniques. So while I've got this on grass, I'm actually going to pick these areas and turn them. Ooh, I did not like that. All right, we're going to do the asphalt first. So what I'm going to do is just do an asphalt area. And I like to use red for asphalt. And I'm just going to pick in the center here, and that's going to identify these higher points. The thing about our auto texture logic is that it will honor any adjacent texture boundaries. So once you start to generate textures, you want to generate them from the larger areas to the smaller areas. So now that I've got that taken care of, you can see that we've got a little bit more detail in here If I tighten up on the shadows, you can really see it. So what I'm going to do here is really quickly switch this to a nice brick area, a brick pattern, also at 65. I'm just going to leave this as red, and what I'm going to do is roll out just a little bit because I can see the edges where I want to put the brick areas. And again, every point that I pick, it's going to analyze that area. And I'm going to hit apply. So now it's automatically found our brick areas. I can see that we've got some high points out here as well. So I'm going to pick these areas, hit apply, bricks. All right, that's great. And I've got another area over here, it looks like. Hit apply. And again, if you hit apply and you don't get the right result, just press the Control-Z. And now since this is Holland, the one thing I'm pretty sure is that there's some water. So I'm just going to drop down in here and I'm just going to drop in water for those channels. Show you a little advanced thing is more than likely this is not going to be water coming along these edges. So I'm going to do one more auto texture and then I'm going to finish it up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use concrete for this side. I could pick asphalt or brick or any of those others. And I know that's not going to work. So I'm going to start it again. Usually if the point snaps to right on a polyline, you're not going to get a good result. So I made sure that I picked a point that wasn't, and now you can see even these vertical faces are now all done in concrete. So if we go up to our textures, I'm going to end the command and I'm going to, whoops, wrong scenario, sorry. Turn off those textures. Now you have a really prettily done surface. Now I can say this is a LandXML 2.0 file, and all of this will round trip into, and I could show you really quickly if I go to LandXML 2.0, we can use our thumbnail preview. I'm going to make that a little bit larger so you guys can see, and I should have.
This is a good point you're making, Nathan, that landxml.org utilizes this same viewer because we're managing that site, and now you can view the very file you made in landxml.org using the free tool. So everyone using P3D Topo, texturing and modifying their surfaces, who hands this off, the person getting it on the other end can review it within landxml.org's viewer.
Yeah, and I'm actually going to resave that. I'll go back to the preview window again and hit F5. And now you can see the red bricks that are showing up. And you know the other interesting thing is that if you have one of these things open, you know you can quickly open one of these guys by just dragging and dropping it onto the P3D window. This works with whether you're in the LandXML viewing mode or whether or not you're in the full-blown product. So basically with these scenarios, you can quickly double-click on each scenario to basically retravel back to that scenario and set it active. When you do a LandXML export, it will only export data in the current scenario. But this is a way that you can review and edit across, you know, many files all in the same editing session.
And I'd like to point out, Nathan, that landxml.org, even though the key thing in sharing surface files in LandXML format is accuracy, so that it can be built, you can use it for design, etc. Because now we can save textures, that further enhances the viewing within the free landxml.org viewer. So people know what they're getting.
That's exactly right. And with the free viewer, you also get the thumbnail control as well. This is actually P3D running in the LandXML free edition, and you can see that you have the draw polyline, that there's a number of commands. The most important one, though, is select texture and auto texture. So the really important thing about the free LandXML viewer is not only do you get this pretty LandXML picture, but you can also texturize it, and you can basically upgrade it, and you can set colors on all of your polylines and alignments and parcels and so forth, and you can re-export that back out. And if you're using LandXML files that have coordinate systems using WKT, we automatically set the coordinate system for each for each file as it gets loaded per scenario. So in this case, we're out in Holland, you can see our latitude and longitude is actually way over there.